Hello, and welcome to another gentle journey on Sleepy Professor Stories. Tonight, you are invited into the quiet mountains of central China, where pale mist moves slowly between tall bamboo stems and the world feels unhurried. Imagine the air cool and soft, carrying the faint green scent of leaves. The forest does not rush. The hills rise and fold into one another like calm breaths, and somewhere within them, a black and white figure moves without hurry. Before we follow that gentle creature, we begin even earlier, in deep time, tracing the long evolutionary path that shaped the giant panda. Not as a dramatic transformation, not as a sudden event, but as a slow unfolding across millions of years. Evolution, when you look at it closely, is patient. It does not leap forward. It does not strain. It shifts in tiny adjustments, generation after generation, like the steady rhythm of breathing. Small differences accumulate quietly, guided by climate, by landscape, by food, by chance. Over vast stretches of time, these subtle changes gather into something distinct. And tonight, we simply watch that process with calm curiosity. If this gentle exploration brings you comfort, you may choose to like or subscribe so others can find these slow journeys too. But there is no pressure, no urgency. It is only an invitation. For now, there is nothing you need to do. Let your breathing slow. Let your body soften into whatever is supporting you. Feel the quiet beneath the words. You can simply listen or drift, allowing the story of deep time to move past you like distant hills under a fading sky. The mountains wait patiently. The bamboo sways almost invisibly. And far back in the ancient forests, the story of the panda begins to take its first quiet shape. Let's begin. Long before the black and white pattern of the giant panda becomes familiar to the human eye, long before bamboo forests blanket the mountains of central China, there are other forests, older and warmer, stretching across continents that look slightly different from the ones you know. If you allow your mind to drift backward through time, millions of years into the past, you find yourself standing on soft earth beneath the broad-leaved trees. The air feels humid, heavy with the scent of growing plants. Small mammals rustle in the undergrowth. And somewhere nearby, one of the earliest ancestors of modern bears walks slowly across the forest floor. These early bear relatives are not yet the powerful, thick-furred creatures you might picture today. They are smaller, lighter, more generalized in their habits. Their bodies carry the flexible design of animals that must adapt to many kinds of food and terrain. Paleontologists studying fossilized bones pressed into ancient sediments see in their teeth and limb structure the beginnings of a family line that will later spread across the northern hemisphere. The shape of the molars suggests an ability to grind plant material, yet also to tear meat. Already, even at this early stage, the bear lineage carries a quiet versatility. As climates shift gently over vast spans of time, forests expand and contract. During warmer periods, dense woodlands cover large regions of Eurasia and North America. In cooler intervals, open habitats spread. The ancestors of bears move with these changes, not consciously deciding, but responding generation by generation. Those whose bodies are slightly better suited to new foods or new terrain leave more offspring. Over thousands of generations, these subtle differences accumulate, like layers of soft sediment settling at the bottom of a lake. You can imagine their paws pressing into damp soil. Early bears belonged to a broader group of carnivorous mammals, yet carnivorous does not mean exclusively meat-eating. In biology, this term refers to a shared ancestry, a particular arrangement of teeth and skull bones. Even today, many members of this group eat a mixture of foods. That flexibility is an old inheritance. It allows early bears to survive in forests where fruit ripens in season, where insects hide beneath bark, where small vertebrates dart through leaves. They do not specialize too narrowly. They keep their options open, and in doing so, they endure. The fossil record reveals that bear ancestors likely diverged from other carnivorous relatives tens of millions of years ago. Their lineage separates gradually, not in a dramatic split, but through branching paths of populations that become isolated by geography. Mountain ranges rise as tectonic plates press slowly together. Rivers carve valleys that redirect migration routes. Each barrier gently divides groups of animals, and in isolation, small differences begin to grow. Over time, these differences are no longer small. When you think about evolution, it can feel immense and abstract. But in truth, it unfolds in quiet increments. A slightly stronger jaw, a slightly broader paw, a digestive system that tolerates a bit more plant fiber. None of these changes appear overnight. They are tested by environment, filtered by survival, repeated through inheritance. The process is patient. It does not rush. It mirrors the steady rhythm of your own breathing as you listen now. Early members of the bear family spread across parts of Eurasia, adapting to forests that are lush and layered. Their bodies become heavier, their limbs sturdier. A plantigrade stance, walking with the soles of their feet touching the ground, provides stability. This posture, which you can observe in modern bears, gives them balance when standing upright to reach branches or survey surroundings. It is an ancient trait, rooted deep in their ancestry. Their senses sharpen in particular ways. An acute sense of smell becomes one of their greatest tools. In dense forest environments, their vision can be limited by foliage, but scent travels. It carries information about food, competitors, mates. Individuals with slightly more sensitive olfactory abilities gain subtle advantages. Over time, this sensory strength becomes a defining characteristic of the bear lineage. The Earth itself is changing during these epochs. Continents continue their slow drift. Ocean currents shift, influencing global climate patterns. In warmer intervals, subtropical forests extend farther north than they do today. In cooler times, grasslands and open woodlands expand. Each environmental transition reshapes the menu available to forest mammals. The ancestors of bears adjust without awareness, guided by natural selection's gentle filtering. It helps to remember that extinction is also part of this story. Many early branches of the carnivorous family tree disappear entirely. Their bones remain in stone, silent witnesses to experiments that did not continue. The bear lineage persists, not because it is destined, but because its flexible design fits the shifting conditions of its time. Adaptability, rather than perfection, becomes its quiet strength. As millions of years pass, different bear species emerge in different regions. Some grow larger, some remain smaller. Some lean more heavily toward meat, others toward plants. Their skulls change shape in response to dietary pressures. Their teeth thicken or sharpen. The forest floor becomes a stage for gradual transformation, generation layered upon generation. There is something deeply calming in recognizing how unhurried this process is. Evolution does not demand immediate results. It works through variation and time, allowing countless small adjustments to settle into place. When you consider the ancient ancestors of the giant panda, you are not looking at a sudden departure from other bears. You are observing a long continuum, a steady unfolding from shared roots. The earliest bears likely roam landscapes that feel both familiar and foreign. Trees sway in winds not so different from today's breezes. Rain falls in rhythms you would recognize. Yet the arrangement of species is distinct. Prehistoric ungulates graze in clearings. Early primates move through branches. And among them, bear ancestors forage with deliberate movements, already carrying the physical blueprint that will one day allow a distant descendant to grasp bamboo stalks in a mountain forest. Their digestive systems, though belonging to carnivorans, retain flexibility. This biological heritage will matter greatly in the future. For now, it simply allows survival across varied diets. Insects, carrion, fruit, roots, each provides energy. Individuals that can process a broader range of nutrients are buffered against scarcity. Over time, genes supporting digestive versatility become common within the lineage. If you let your thoughts soften, you can picture these ancient forests in dim green light. Nothing is hurried. No dramatic music plays. Only the quiet persistence of life adapting to circumstance. You do not need to hold all the details. They settle gently, like leaves drifting down to earth. From these early bear ancestors, many paths will branch. Some lines will lead toward the powerful brown bears of northern regions. Others will move toward polar bears, adapted to ice and sea. And one path, subtle at first, will begin to angle towards something different. A lineage that will one day slow its movements even further, narrow its diet in a surprising direction, and settle into mist-covered mountains. But that shift has not happened yet. For now, you remain in the ancient forest, watching sturdy, adaptable bears place one paw in front of the other, unaware of the distant future waiting in their bones. And as the branches of their family tree begin to spread wider, you may wonder how one particular branch gradually separates, carving its own quiet path through time. If you remain in that ancient forest a little longer, you begin to sense that the bear family is not a single straight line moving forward, but something wider and more intricate. Imagine standing before an old tree with heavy limbs spreading outward in many directions. Each branch grows from the same trunk, yet each reaches toward its own patch of light. Evolution works in much the same way. From the sturdy ancestors you have just met, different populations drift apart, shaped by mountains, rivers, and changing climates until their paths become distinct. In the fossil beds of Eurasia, paleontologists uncover bones that show subtle differences in skull shape and tooth structure. These differences are not dramatic. They are small variations that accumulate slowly as groups of bears become separated by geography. When rising mountain ranges form natural barriers, populations on one side rarely meet those on the other. Over many generations, genes shuffle in slightly different patterns. Traits that prove useful in one region may not be as helpful in another. Without any urgency, without any grand design, divergence begins. You can picture two valleys divided by a newly uplifted ridge. In one valley, forests remain dense and humid. In the other, the climate grows a little cooler, a little drier. Bears in each place continue to forage, to mate, to raise cubs. They do not know they are drifting apart genetically. Yet as centuries turn into millennia, small differences in body size, jaw strength, and diet preference become more pronounced. Eventually, these populations no longer interbreed even if they meet again. A branch has formed. Modern science adds another layer to this understanding. By comparing DNA sequences among living bear species, researchers trace patterns of relatedness. A genetic data suggests that the lineage leading to the giant panda separates from other bears quite early in the family's history. It is not a late offshoot, but an ancient one, branching near the base of the bear tree. This means that while pandas share a common ancestor with brown bears, black bears, and polar bears, their path diverges long ago, allowing millions of years of independent change. It may feel surprising that the gentle bamboo eater you know today stands on such deep roots within the bear family. But the genetic code, like a quiet archive, preserves these relationships. When scientists analyze specific stretches of DNA, they find markers that link pandas firmly within the bear group, rather than placing them among raccoons or other carnivorans as was once debated. The evidence settles calmly into place, resolving old questions without drama. Fossils help complete the picture. Early panda relatives, discovered in regions of China and nearby areas, show features that are intermediate between generalized bears and the highly specialized forms seen today. Their teeth are already broader in places, hinting at an increasing reliance on plant material. Their skulls suggest strong jaw muscles, capable of powerful grinding. These ancient forms are not yet the pandas of modern bamboo forests, but you can sense the direction of travel. The branch is lengthening. If you allow your breathing to slow, you can imagine time stretching wide around these changes. There is no rush. Each generation simply inherits slight variations from the last. In some individuals, a mutation alters the shape of a molar by a fraction. In others, our digestive enzymes function a little differently. Most variations fade quietly. Some persist because they suit the environment just a bit better. Over countless repetitions, these small shifts accumulate into meaningful divergence. Climate plays its steady role as well. During certain epochs, subtropical forests blanket much of East Asia, providing abundant plant life. In other periods, cooling trends fragment habitats, isolating populations in mountain refuges. Isolation deepens genetic differences. When groups remain separated long enough, their evolutionary paths solidify into distinct species. The panda lineage continues to refine itself in relative seclusion, shaped by the landscapes of what is now China. It is comforting to recognize how natural this branching process is. There is no sense of loss when one branch grows apart from another. Both continue in their own directions. Brown bears adapt to varied habitats across vast territories. Polar bears, much later, will adapt to icy shores and sea ice. Meanwhile, the panda lineage moves steadily toward a narrower ecological niche. None of these paths is superior or inferior. They are simply responses to different sets of conditions. As researchers reconstruct these relationships, they use both fossil morphology and molecular clocks. By estimating how quickly genetic mutations accumulate, scientists approximate the timing of divergence events. The separation of the panda lineage from other bears appears to occur tens of millions of years ago. This early divergence explains why pandas possess certain unique traits, even while retaining the overall structure of a bear. Their skeleton, their gait, their internal anatomy clearly identify them as members of the bear family, yet their adaptations set them apart. You might picture the family tree again, its trunk thick and ancient. From it extend limbs that curve gently outward. Some branches are heavy and sprawling, others are slender and specialized. The panda's branch angles off early, growing in relative quiet. It does not compete directly with the branches that will later dominate colder northern regions. Instead, it settles into subtropical forests where bamboo thrives. There is something deeply peaceful in this image of divergence without conflict. Evolution does not demand confrontation. It allows coexistence through differentiation. When populations occupy slightly different niches, competition eases. One lineage may favor open habitats and mixed diets. Another may lean toward dense forests and fibrous plants. Over time, these preferences become built into anatomy and behavior. As you listen, you do not need to memorize the timelines or the technical terms. The essential idea is simple. From a shared beginning, multiple paths unfold. The panda lineage is one of those paths, ancient and distinct. It separates early, carries forward the sturdy blueprint of a bear, and begins to emphasize traits that will one day support a remarkable dietary specialization. In the quiet laboratories where DNA is sequenced, and in the dusty field sites where fossils are brushed free from stone, scientists piece together this branching story. Each discovery adds another gentle line to the family tree. The narrative becomes clearer, yet it remains calm and unhurried, mirroring the gradual pace at which it originally occurred. You can let your body soften as this understanding settles. There is nothing you need to solve. Just notice how life diversifies, how one ancestral form gives rise to many, each shaped by environment and time. The panda's path is neither abrupt nor mysterious. It is simply one branch among many, reaching outward through deep history. And as that branch continues to extend into ancient Asian forests, subtle changes in diet begin to guide its growth in a particular direction, hinting at the quiet transformation that waits in the chapters ahead. Now you drift gently forward through time, carried from the early branching of the bear family into the landscapes of ancient Asia. The air grows warmer again, thick with humidity, and the forests stretch wide across what will one day be central and southern China. This is the Miocene epoch, a span of deep history when the world feels both familiar and subtly different. Grasses begin to spread in some regions, yet in these valleys and foothills, dense forests still hold their ground. You can imagine broad-leaved trees arching overhead, vines curling around trunks, and a layered canopy filtering the sunlight into soft green light. It is within these forests that early relatives of the panda begin to settle more firmly. Fossil discoveries from this era reveal forms that are recognizably bear-like, yet already showing signs of dietary adjustment. Their molars broaden slightly, surfaces becoming more suited to crushing and grinding plant material. This does not happen all at once. It unfolds gradually, or shaped by the abundance of vegetation surrounding them. In these lush environments, plant resources are reliable, and individuals capable of processing fibrous stems and leaves gain a quiet advantage. The Miocene climate in East Asia is generally warmer than today, though not static. Subtle shifts ripple across millions of years. Periods of increased rainfall nourish forests, while cooler intervals thin them in certain areas. These changes influence which plants thrive. Bamboo, already present as part of the grass family, spreads through understories and along slopes. It does not yet dominate the way it will in later periods, but it is there, resilient, fast-growing, adaptable. For an animal with flexible feeding habits, such plants offer opportunity. As tectonic forces continue their slow work beneath the Earth's crust, mountain ranges begin to rise more prominently. The uplift of the Tibetan Plateau alters wind patterns and monsoon systems, gradually shaping the climate of Eastern Asia. These geological movements are imperceptible in a single lifetime, yet over vast stretches of time they redirect rivers, create rain shadows, and carve out new ecological zones. Forests become patchworks of varied habitats, separated by elevation and terrain. You can picture early panda relatives moving through these shifting landscapes. Their bodies are sturdy, their gait deliberate. They forage among shrubs, strip bark from branches, and test different plant parts with their strong jaws. Individuals whose teeth are slightly better suited to grinding tough vegetation find it easier to extract nutrients. Over generations, natural selection favors these traits. As the skull grows subtly broader in places where powerful chewing muscles attach, the jaw strengthens. Each small adjustment settles into the lineage like a quiet agreement with the environment. The diversity of plant life in these forests supports experimentation. There are fruits in certain seasons, tender shoots in others, and woody stems available year-round. Early panda ancestors likely consume a mixed diet, not yet dependent on a single source. This flexibility buffers them against seasonal scarcity. It also provides the evolutionary space for specialization to emerge slowly, without immediate risk. Fossil evidence from southern China reveals species that paleontologists identify as early members of the panda lineage. Their teeth show wear patterns consistent with significant plant consumption. At the same time, aspects of their skeletal structure confirm their place within the broader bear family. This combination, unmistakably bear-like yet increasingly herbivorous, illustrates a lineage in transition. Not a sudden transformation, but a gentle leaning in one direction. As the mountains continue to rise and climates fluctuate, habitats fragment. Some populations of these early pandas become isolated in valleys or along particular mountain slopes. Isolation allows genetic differences to accumulate. In one region, bamboo may be especially abundant, encouraging greater reliance on it. In another, mixed forests dominate, maintaining dietary diversity. These subtle ecological differences guide the pace and direction of adaptation. You do not need to track every geological detail. Simply imagine the land itself slowly reshaping, like a blanket being gently folded and unfolded over time. Rivers carve deeper channels, slopes grow steeper, clouds gather against rising peaks and release steady rains. In these moist environments, bamboo flourishes. Its rapid growth and resilience make it a dependable resource. For an animal already capable of grinding fibrous plants, this abundance becomes increasingly significant. Over many generations, digestive systems respond to dietary emphasis. While pandas remain classified within the carnivoran order due to their ancestry, their gut microbiota begin to reflect greater plant processing. The internal world of microbes adapts alongside the visible anatomy. This partnership between host and microorganisms allows more efficient extraction of nutrients from cellulose-rich foods. It is a quiet collaboration, invisible but essential. The Miocene forests are not static museums. They teem with other life as well. Early deer, small primates, ancient relatives of modern cats. Competition and coexistence shape daily survival. By leaning more heavily toward bamboo and other fibrous plants, the panda lineage reduces direct competition with predators that rely primarily on meat. Specialization becomes not a limitation, but a strategy for peaceful coexistence within a crowded ecosystem. If you pause for a moment, you can sense how everything interconnects. Geological uplift influences climate. Climate shapes vegetation. Vegetation guides diet. Diet molds anatomy. Anatomy feeds back into survival and reproduction. Each layer rests gently upon the others. There is no abrupt leap, no dramatic turning point, only steady adjustment across deep time. The forests of ancient China provide both shelter and direction. Their dense canopies protect populations during climatic swings. Their varied plant life offers pathways toward specialization. In this setting, the panda lineage gradually narrows its ecological focus. Teeth designed for generalist feeding become more efficient at crushing bamboo. Jaw muscles strengthen further. Behavioral patterns may shift toward longer feeding periods, necessary to meet energy needs from a low-calorie diet. You can almost hear the soft snap of bamboo stems between powerful molars, though the forests are still distant in time. The sound is not yet dominant, but it is becoming more common. Generation after generation, individuals that handle bamboo well pass their genes forward. The branch of the family tree continues to extend, guided by environment rather than intention. As climates continue their long oscillations, some forests recede while others expand. The panda lineage, now increasingly tied to forested mountain habitats, follows the green corridors where bamboo persists. These refugees become anchors during cooler periods. Isolation deepens, and with it, distinct characteristics solidify. There is something deeply reassuring in recognizing how the land itself participates in shaping life. Mountains rise slowly. Rains fall season after season. Plants respond. Animals respond in turn. You do not need to hurry through these connections. Let them unfold at their natural pace, like mist drifting along a hillside. By the end of the Miocene, the panda lineage stands clearly apart from other bears in its dietary emphasis and certain anatomical traits. Yet it remains unmistakably a bear. Strong-limbed, thick-furred, grounded in its ancient ancestry. The forests of ancient China have acted as both cradle and sculptor, guiding this branch toward its unique future. And as bamboo grows more abundant in certain mountain regions, you begin to sense that this plant, humble, resilient, and ever regenerating, will soon take on a central role in the story, inviting a deeper turning towards specialization in the chapters ahead. In the quiet mountain forests of ancient China, something subtle begins to shift. The air is moist, the soil dark and rich, and clusters of bamboo rise in graceful arcs beneath taller trees. At first, bamboo is only one food among many. Early panda ancestors still forage broadly, sampling fruits, tender shoots, small animals, and roots. Yet slowly, almost imperceptibly, their attention lingers longer among the bamboo stands. You can imagine them pausing beside the tall green stems, testing the fibers with their teeth, discovering that although the plant is tough and low in energy, it is abundant and reliable. Bamboo offers a kind of constancy. Unlike seasonal fruits that appear briefly and vanish, Bamboo persists year-round. It grows quickly, replacing what is eaten with fresh shoots. For an animal living in forests where competition for diverse foods can be intense, such steadiness becomes valuable. Individuals capable of efficiently chewing and digesting bamboo gain a small advantage. They are less dependent on fluctuating food sources. Over generations, this slight preference becomes more common. The turning toward bamboo does not happen in a single moment. It unfolds through countless small acts of feeding. A bear-like ancestor spends a little more time chewing fibrous stems. Another finds that young bamboo shoots are easier to digest than woody branches. Variation exists within every population. Some individuals tolerate high-fiber diets better than others. Natural selection, quiet and patient, favors those whose teeth and jaws can handle this repetitive work. As you picture this, you may notice how calm the process feels. There is no dramatic transformation, no sudden abandonment of other foods. Instead, there is experimentation. Evolution, in this sense, behaves like a long conversation between body and environment. The forest offers possibilities. The animal responds. The most balanced responses continue forward. Teeth provide one of the clearest signs of this gradual shift. Fossils show molars becoming broader and flatter, better suited for grinding tough plant material. Enamel thickens to withstand repeated pressure. The jaw muscles, anchored to strong cheekbones, grow more powerful over time. These changes are incremental, layered gently across generations. A fraction of a millimeter here, a slight reshaping there. Yet, when viewed across millions of years, the cumulative effect is unmistakable. Bamboo itself is not an easy meal. It is rich in cellulose, a complex carbohydrate that most mammals struggled to break down without microbial assistance. The ancestors of pandas, belonging to the carnivoran lineage, do not possess the specialized stomach chambers of ruminants like cows. Instead, they rely on a simpler digestive tract. This means that even as bamboo becomes a primary food, a digestion remains relatively inefficient. To compensate, the animals must eat large quantities and spend long hours feeding. This rhythm of near-constant eating begins to shape behavior. Time that might otherwise be spent roaming widely or hunting is increasingly devoted to chewing. Energy intake from bamboo is modest, so conserving energy becomes important. A slower pace of movement, more resting between feeding bouts, and a deliberate, unhurried lifestyle gradually align with dietary demands. The seeds of the modern panda's calm demeanor are planted here, not as personality, but as biological necessity. You can feel how interconnected these changes are. Diet influences anatomy. Anatomy influences behavior. Behavior feeds back into survival. All of it unfolds without urgency. If you let your breathing slow now, you may sense that this story mirrors the patience of evolution itself. There is nothing you need to do. Just follow the gentle arc of adaptation as it bends toward green stems in a quiet forest. As climates continue their slow oscillations, bamboo forests expand in certain mountainous regions. Cooler temperatures and consistent rainfall create favorable conditions for its growth. In these refuges, reliance on bamboo deepens. Populations that specialize further find themselves less in direct competition with other carnivorous mammals. By narrowing their niche, they carve out a stable place within the ecosystem. Genetic changes accumulate alongside visible traits. Variations in genes related to taste perception may influence food preference. Some studies suggest that pandas have alterations in receptors, associated with savoring certain flavors common in meat. While their classification remains tied to their carnivorous ancestry, their sensory world increasingly aligns with a plant-based diet. This does not mean they lose all capacity for other foods, but their evolutionary emphasis shifts. The transition is not entirely smooth. Bamboo forests themselves undergo cycles of flowering and die-off. When a bamboo species flowers synchronously across large areas, the plants may perish afterward, temporarily reducing available food. In such times, flexibility remains important. The ancestral panda lineage retains enough dietary versatility to endure these fluctuations. Yet, over long periods, the balance tips more and more toward bamboo as the dependable foundation. Imagine the soundscape of these forests: the soft rustle of leaves, the gentle crack of a stalk being split, the steady rhythm of chewing. Feeding becomes a central daily activity. Young individuals learn from adults which parts of the plant to select, how to strip leaves, how to grip stems with dexterous paws. Cultural learning may play a role in reinforcing dietary habits, intertwining behavior with biology. Over countless generations, the lineage refines its tools. The wrist bone that will later function as a pseudo-thumb begins its subtle enlargement, offering improved grip on cylindrical stems. At this stage, the adaptation is modest but useful. Small skeletal shifts make repetitive feeding more efficient. Each improvement reduces strain, allowing longer feeding sessions without excessive energy loss. There is a kind of quiet courage in this specialization. By committing to a low-energy food source, the panda lineage accepts constraints. Yet within those constraints lies stability. Bamboo may not be rich, but it is predictable. In ecological terms, predictability can be more valuable than abundance that appears only briefly. If your thoughts begin to wander, let them do so gently. You can return to the image of a bear-like figure seated among bamboo, holding a stalk with careful paws, grinding it patiently between broad teeth. There is no rush. The forest stands still around it. Time stretches wide. As the turning toward bamboo continues, the branch of the bear family tree that leads to pandas becomes more distinct. Other bears explore open plains, coastal regions, or icy shores. This lineage remains tied to forested mountains, weaving its fate with a single resilient plant. The partnership deepens with each generation, and as you rest in this understanding of patient change, you may sense that the body itself is preparing for further refinement, for teeth and jaws shaped even more precisely by the steady work of grinding green stems, inviting the next chapter to look closely at the sculpting power of survival. If you sit quietly in that mountain forest and watch a panda ancestor feed, your attention is drawn not only to the bamboo, but to the steady rhythm of chewing. There is a deep, patient strength in it. Stalk meets tooth. Fiber yields slowly. The movement repeats, unhurried and deliberate. Over millions of years, this simple action becomes a sculptor, shaping bone and muscle with remarkable precision. The earliest members of the panda lineage still carry the general dental pattern of bears. Their teeth include sharp canines suited for gripping and molars capable of crushing both meat and plant matter. Yet, as bamboo becomes a larger part of the diet, subtle pressures accumulate. Individuals whose molars are slightly broader can grind tough cellulose more effectively. Those with thicker enamel experience less wear from repetitive chewing. These small advantages translate into better nourishment, steadier energy, and greater reproductive success. Over time, the molars of the panda lineage become notably large and flat, with complex ridges that increase surface area. If you imagine running your fingers across a fossilized molar, you would feel its textured landscape, built to break down fibrous stems into manageable fragments. The enamel thickens like a protective glaze, guarding against constant abrasion. This is not a sudden redesign. It is a slow refinement guided by countless meals taken across generations. The skull responds as well. Powerful chewing requires strong attachment points for jaw muscles. In many fossil specimens, the zygomatic arches, the cheekbones, widen and flare slightly, providing more space for muscle anchoring. The sagittal crest along the top of the skull, a ridge where muscles attach, becomes more pronounced in some individuals. These structural reinforcements allow the jaw to exert steady, sustained force without fatigue. You can sense how beautifully interconnected these changes are. Teeth grow broader, muscles grow stronger, bone thickens where stress is greatest. Each adaptation reinforces the others, are like beams supporting a quiet architectural structure. The skull of the panda lineage becomes less about tearing flesh and more about grinding plant fibers. Yet it never loses its fundamental bear identity. The basic blueprint remains intact, even as details shift. It is important to remember that these changes unfold within living populations. Not every individual displays the same degree of modification at once. Variation continues to ripple through the lineage. Some jaws are slightly more robust, some molars slightly larger. Natural selection does not operate with perfection. It simply favors traits that align most closely with environmental demands. Bamboo's toughness exerts consistent pressure. The plant's fibers resist breaking, and its silica content contributes to dental wear. Individuals with weaker enamel may suffer damage that limits feeding efficiency. Over generations, genes supporting thicker enamel become more common. This is evolution working quietly, responding to the mechanical realities of diet. As chewing becomes the central activity of daily life, the lower jaw strengthens. The mandible thickens to withstand repetitive stress. The temporomandibular joint, where the jaw connects to the skull, stabilizes to support sustained grinding motions. If you imagine the sound of bamboo being crushed between molars, you can almost feel the steady compression transmitted through bone. Despite these specializations, the panda lineage retains certain carnivoran features. The digestive tract does not transform into the multi-chambered stomach of a ruminant. Instead, the emphasis remains on mechanical breakdown in the mouth, followed by relatively rapid passage through the gut. This means chewing must be thorough. The skull becomes a tool designed for persistence rather than speed. You might picture time itself as a sculptor's hand, gently pressing and reshaping without haste. There is no dramatic chiseling, no sudden fracture, only the gradual reinforcement of structures that serve a purpose. In this way, the shape of survival emerges through repetition. Fossil evidence shows intermediate forms along this path. Early panda relatives display molars that are broader than those of typical bears, but not yet as massive as those of modern pandas. Their skulls reveal incremental widening and strengthening. Each specimen provides a snapshot in a long continuum, illustrating how gradual the process truly is. If you let your body relax into the rhythm of this story, you may notice how steady it feels. Evolution does not rush toward an end point. It responds to present conditions. As bamboo becomes a reliable food source, the panda lineage invests more deeply in the structures required to process it. The investment pays off through stability in a niche where competition is reduced. The muscles of the jaw grow especially powerful. In living pandas today, these muscles allow them to generate impressive bite forces relative to their size. This capability traces back through their ancestors, refined slowly over millions of years. The skull's architecture distributes stress evenly, preventing fractures during prolonged feeding. There is a quiet elegance in this adaptation. Instead of chasing prey across open plains, the panda lineage channels its strength into stationary endurance. Sitting among bamboo, holding a stalk between its paws, it applies steady pressure until fibers split. The energy gained may be modest, but the method is reliable. Even the shape of the nasal passages and skull cavity subtly accommodates these muscular changes. Space must be balanced between structural strength and sensory function. Evolution negotiates these trade-offs carefully. No trait exists in isolation. Each adjustment ripples through the organism as a whole. As the lineage continues along this path, the distinction between pandas and other bears becomes more visible in the fossil record. Brown bears and their relatives maintain sharper molars suited for omnivorous diets that include meat. The panda branch, by contrast, commits more fully to grinding. The family tree's branches diverge not only genetically, but anatomically. You do not need to analyze every ridge and crest. Simply picture a skull resting in soft sediment, its contours shaped by ancient chewing. That skull tells a story of patience, of meals repeated thousands upon thousands of times. It speaks of an environment that rewards endurance and precision over speed. There is something comforting in this image. Survival does not always require aggression or dramatic change. Sometimes it requires steadiness, a willingness to adapt slowly to what is available. The panda lineage demonstrates this beautifully. Through teeth and jaws alone, you can trace the arc of its commitment to bamboo. As you remain in this quiet forest, listening to the imagined rhythm of grinding molars, you may begin to wonder how such powerful chewing is supported by the rest of the body, how paws hold the stalk steady, and how a simple bone in the wrist will subtly shift to assist in this patient work. If you sit quietly beside a feeding panda, your eyes are drawn not only to its powerful jaws, but to its paws. There is something gentle and deliberate in the way it holds a bamboo stalk, turning it slightly, guiding it toward its mouth with calm precision. At first glance, it almost seems as though the animal possesses a thumb, an opposable digit that allows it to grasp with surprising skill. Yet this thumb is not a true thumb at all. It is something subtler, something shaped by quiet necessity over vast stretches of time. Deep within the wrist of the panda lies a small bone known as the radial sesamoid. In most mammals, this bone is modest, serving as a support structure within tendons. In the panda lineage, however, it gradually enlarges and shifts slightly in position. Over generations, this bone begins to protrude in a way that mimics an extra digit. It does not replace the true thumb, nor does it alter the basic 5-digit structure common to mammals. Instead, it acts as an extension, pressing against bamboo stalks and allowing a firmer grip. You can imagine early panda ancestors manipulating food with ordinary bear paws, holding stems between their forelegs as best they can. Individuals with a slightly larger radial sesamoid find that they can stabilize slender stalks more easily. They waste less energy chasing rolling stems across the forest floor. They feed more efficiently. The advantage is small at first, almost invisible. Yet, in the steady arithmetic of survival, even minor improvements accumulate. As reliance on bamboo deepens, the value of this enhanced grip becomes clearer. Feeding on bamboo requires repetition. Stalk after stalk must be held, rotated, stripped of leaves, and guided into the mouth. A secure hold reduces effort. Over many generations, natural selection favors individuals whose radial sesamoid bone is more pronounced, whose wrist structure supports this pseudo-thumb's function. The transformation is not dramatic. The bone does not suddenly leap outward. It grows incrementally, guided by genetic variation and environmental demand. Tendons and muscles adapt alongside it, coordinating subtle movements that improve dexterity. The panda's paw remains unmistakably bear-like, padded and broad. And yet, it now carries an additional tool shaped quietly by diet. If you picture the paw in motion, you see the pseudo-thumb pressing against the side of a bamboo stalk, while the other digits curl inward. The stalk is secured between this bony extension and the true fingers. The arrangement is not as refined as the human hand, yet it is remarkably effective. Evolution has found a solution without redesigning the entire limb. This adaptation highlights an important truth about evolution. It works with what already exists. The panda lineage does not develop a completely new digit from scratch. Instead, it modifies an existing bone, repurposing it for a new function. In this way, evolution resembles a careful craftsperson, reshaping available materials rather than discarding them. Fossil evidence suggests that early members of the panda lineage display intermediate forms of this radial sesamoid enlargement. The bone is slightly extended compared to other bears, though not as pronounced as in modern pandas. This gradual progression illustrates the steady pace of change. Each generation inherits a version of the trait, refined a little further by the pressures of daily feeding. As you reflect on this, you may feel a sense of quiet admiration for the subtlety of biological design. The pseudo-thumb is not flashy. It does not transform the panda into a climber of delicate branches or a tool user in the human sense. It simply improves grip on cylindrical stems. Yet this small improvement supports a dietary specialization that defines the entire species. The wrist joint accommodates this change without sacrificing stability. Pandas still bear their weight on all fours, walking with the plantigrade stance inherited from ancient ancestors. The pseudo-thumb does not interfere with locomotion. Instead, it adds versatility while preserving strength. This balance is characteristic of evolutionary solutions. Function expands without undermining foundational structure. Imagine the forest once more. A panda sits among tall bamboo, legs splayed comfortably, paws working methodically. The pseudo-thumb presses gently but firmly, holding the stalk in place. The animal strips leaves with its teeth, then cracks the stem, chewing steadily. The movement is unhurried, almost meditative. Hours pass in this quiet activity. You may notice how this small anatomical shift influences behavior. With improved grip, feeding becomes more efficient. Energy saved in handling translates into energy available for growth and reproduction. Over time, This efficiency reinforces the lineage's commitment to bamboo. The pseudo-thumb is both a result of specialization and a support for it. There is a soothing lesson here. Evolution does not require dramatic leaps. Sometimes a single bone shifting slightly can alter a species' trajectory. The panda lineage demonstrates how incremental adjustments, layered patiently across millions of years, create meaningful change. If your thoughts begin to wander, allow them to drift gently back to the image of that paw. There is nothing you need to analyze or remember. Simply notice the quiet elegance of a bone repurposed for stability. Notice how necessity shapes structure without hurry. Our genetic studies indicate that the enlargement of the radial sesamoid correlates with the increasing reliance on bamboo in the panda lineage. The trait becomes more pronounced as dietary specialization deepens. This alignment between anatomy and ecology underscores the interconnectedness of evolution's pathways. Even today, the panda's pseudo-thumb remains a striking example of evolutionary innovation through modification. It reminds us that complex outcomes can arise from simple beginnings. A small bone, given time and consistent pressure, becomes a defining feature. As you rest in this understanding, the forest around you feels steady and calm. Bamboo sways softly. The panda continues its patient meal, supported by a wrist bone that quietly changed the course of its lineage. And as the grip on bamboo grows ever more secure, you may begin to wonder how the rest of the body adapts to sustain such a fibrous diet. How digestion, energy use, and daily rhythm align with this singular commitment to green stems. If you sit quietly beside a panda in the forest, watching it chew bamboo with patient dedication, it may seem natural to think of it as a herbivore. Its paws cradle green stems, its jaws move in steady rhythm, leaves scatter softly at its feet. And yet, beneath this calm surface, the panda carries the internal blueprint of a carnivore. Its ancestry is written into its body in ways that remain unchanged, even as its diet turns almost entirely toward plants. Biologists classify animals not only by what they eat, but by their evolutionary lineage. The panda belongs to the order Carnivora, a group defined by shared skeletal features and ancestral traits. This classification connects it to wolves, bears, cats, and other meat-eating mammals. Even though the panda now consumes mostly bamboo, its digestive system retains the relatively simple structure typical of carnivores. It does not possess the multi-chambered stomach of cattle or the elongated, highly specialized gut of many plant-eating mammals. This means that when a panda eats bamboo, digestion is not as efficient as it might be in a true herbivore. The stomach is straightforward, designed originally for processing animal protein. The intestines are comparatively short, limiting the time available for breaking down tough plant fibers. As a result, much of the cellulose in bamboo passes through the body only partially digested. To compensate, the panda eats large quantities each day, sometimes spending most of its waking hours feeding. You can imagine the quiet repetition of this cycle. Chew, swallow, rest, chew again. The forest remains still while the panda works steadily to extract enough energy from its fibrous diet. The low nutritional value of bamboo shapes its entire lifestyle. Movement becomes measured. Energy expenditure is carefully balanced against intake. There is no wasted motion. Within the panda's gut lies another layer of adaptation. Trillions of microbes inhabit the digestive tract, forming a community that assists in breaking down food. In herbivores with specialized digestive systems, these microbes are highly efficient at fermenting cellulose. In pandas, the microbial community reflects their carnivorous heritage, but also shows some adjustment toward plant digestion. Certain bacteria capable of processing plant material are present, helping to release nutrients from bamboo's rigid fibers. Even so, the efficiency remains modest compared to animals evolved exclusively for grazing. The panda's digestive strategy relies more on quantity than on complex fermentation. This arrangement may seem imperfect, yet it functions well enough in the stable bamboo forests where food is abundant. Evolution does not require perfect solutions, only workable ones. If you let your breathing slow, you may notice how gentle this compromise feels. The panda does not fully transform into a ruminant. It does not abandon its ancestral structure. Instead, it modifies behavior and feeding patterns to align with its existing anatomy. This is another example of evolution working with what is already present, adjusting gradually rather than rebuilding entirely. The panda's teeth and jaw muscles, which you have already explored, compensate for digestive simplicity by mechanically breaking bamboo into small fragments. The more thoroughly the plant is crushed, the easier it becomes for microbes and digestive enzymes to access nutrients. In this way, chewing becomes an extension of digestion. The mouth takes on a greater share of the work. Taste perception may also play a role in reinforcing dietary preference. Research suggests that pandas have alterations in certain taste receptors associated with savoring meat flavors. These changes may reduce attraction to animal prey, aligning sensory experience with dietary specialization. While pandas occasionally consume small animals or carrion, bamboo remains their primary focus. Despite this herbivorous diet, the panda's skeletal structure remains robust and bear-like. Its claws are strong, suited for climbing and gripping. Its digestive tract does not lengthen dramatically. Its metabolism operates within the framework of a carnivorous body. This combination creates a unique biological profile, an animal that behaves like a plant eater while retaining the architecture of its meat-eating ancestors. The energy economics of this arrangement are delicate. Bamboo provides carbohydrates but little fat or protein. To maintain a body weight, the panda must eat frequently and rest often. This pattern shapes daily rhythms. Feeding sessions stretch across hours, punctuated by periods of stillness. The forest's calm matches the panda's slow tempo. You may find something soothing in this image of balance. A body not perfectly designed for its chosen food, yet capable of adapting behavior to make it work. There is resilience here, a quiet determination embedded in anatomy. Seasonal variation in bamboo species also influences feeding habits. Different species produce shoots at different times, allowing pandas to move between elevations to follow the most nutritious growth. Young shoots contain more protein and are easier to digest than mature stems. This selective feeding reflects an intimate knowledge of the landscape, encoded partly in instinct and reinforced through experience. As climates shift across centuries, bamboo forests persist in mountainous refuges. The panda's commitment to this niche remains steady. Even though its digestive efficiency is limited, the abundance of bamboo ensures survival. The cost of specialization is offset by stability. Within the panda's cells, enzymes continue their ancient tasks, are breaking down nutrients according to a carnivorous blueprint. Yet the input has changed. Green fibers replace flesh. The system adjusts as best it can. The result is a creature that seems gentle and unhurried, its physiology quietly negotiating between past and present. If your thoughts drift now, allow them to rest on the image of harmony between body and environment. The panda does not rush to become something entirely new. It carries its history forward, adapting through small modifications rather than sweeping reinvention. There is nothing you need to figure out. Just notice how life can follow unexpected paths, how a carnivore's body can sustain a herbivore's diet through patience and repetition. And as you watch the panda continue its steady meal, you may begin to wonder how this low-energy lifestyle shapes not only digestion, but movement, rest, and the art of conserving strength in a world of bamboo. If you sit quietly in the bamboo forest and simply watch a panda through the passing hours, you begin to notice something that feels almost meditative. There is no frantic searching, no long chases, no sudden bursts of dramatic speed. Instead, there is a steady rhythm, eating, pausing, shifting position, eating again. The panda's life unfolds in a gentle cycle shaped by one simple truth. Bamboo provides energy, but not very much of it. Because bamboo is low in calories compared to meat or fatty plant foods, the panda must carefully balance how much energy it spends with how much it gains. This balance is not a conscious calculation, but a biological rhythm. Individuals that conserve energy more effectively are more likely to survive and reproduce. Over time, this rhythm becomes part of the species' pattern of life. You might imagine metabolism as a quiet fire inside the body. In animals that hunt actively or roam long distances, that fire burns brightly and quickly. In pandas, the flame is lower and steadier. Research shows that pandas have a relatively low metabolic rate for their body size. Their bodies use energy slowly, conserving calories extracted from bamboo. This slower burn supports their calm demeanor and measured movements. As you watch a panda feed, you may notice how it often remains seated, using its pseudo-thumb to hold bamboo close while its jaws work methodically. This posture reduces unnecessary movement. It allows the animal to focus energy on chewing rather than constant travel. Even when walking between patches of bamboo, the pace is deliberate. There is no urgency in the step. This pattern of slow movement is not laziness, it is efficiency. In ecosystems where food is abundant but low in nutritional density, speed offers little advantage. What matters is endurance and consistency. The panda's muscles are strong but not built for sustained sprinting. Its body mass is substantial, providing insulation in cooler mountain climates, but also requiring energy to maintain. By moving carefully, it keeps energy expenditure within manageable limits. You can feel how natural this arrangement is. The forest itself seems unhurried. Mist drifts slowly through valleys. Bamboo sways gently in the breeze. The panda's rhythm aligns with its surroundings. Behavior and habitat fit together like pieces of a quiet puzzle. Sleep also plays a role in this balance. Pandas rest frequently throughout the day and night, often dozing between feeding sessions. Rest allows the body to redirect energy toward digestion and cellular repair. It reduces caloric demands. In a way, rest becomes part of the feeding strategy. By sleeping often, the panda stretches the value of each meal. If you let your breathing soften, you might notice how this lifestyle mirrors a kind of peaceful economy. There is no excess, no dramatic waste. Energy in, energy carefully spent. The body responds to the constraints of diet with subtle adjustments in hormone regulation and metabolic control. Thyroid activity, which influences metabolic rate, appears lower in pandas compared to more active carnivores. This hormonal tuning supports a slower internal pace. Despite their calm behavior, pandas are capable climbers and can move with surprising agility when necessary. Cubs often scramble up trees for safety. Adults may climb to reach tender bamboo shoots. The strength remains within them, inherited from their bear ancestry. Yet they use it sparingly, reserving bursts of exertion for moments that truly require it. The balance between feeding and rest shapes daily time budgets. Studies observing wild pandas note that a significant portion of their day is spent eating, followed by intervals of rest. This cycle repeats with gentle regularity. Over seasons, as bamboo species change growth patterns, pandas may shift elevation to follow the most nutritious shoots, but even these movements are measured. Energy conservation also influences social behavior. Pandas are generally solitary, reducing the need for energy-intensive competition or group coordination. Solitude fits their dietary strategy. By occupying separate territories, individuals minimize overlap and reduce the need for conflict. Within their cells, mitochondria, the tiny structures responsible for energy production, operate at a pace consistent with this low metabolic demand. Every biological process aligns with the broader rhythm of conservation. It is not a limitation, but a finely tuned adaptation to available resources. You may notice how soothing it feels to imagine a life paced this way. There is nothing rushed, nothing forced, just steady cycles of nourishment and rest. The panda's survival depends not on speed or aggression, but on patience. Seasonal changes still require flexibility. During colder months, energy needs may rise slightly to maintain body temperature. Thick fur and fat reserves help buffer these demands. Yet pandas do not hibernate like some bears. Instead, they continue feeding year-round, relying on bamboo's persistent growth. As you remain in this quiet forest, perhaps you sense how deeply interconnected diet and movement truly are. The choice, or rather the evolutionary drift, toward bamboo shapes not only teeth and digestion, but tempo and temperament. A low-energy food source encourages a low-energy lifestyle. There is something profoundly gentle in this arrangement. Survival does not always mean intensity. Sometimes it means slowing down, aligning your pace with the rhythm of your environment. The panda embodies this principle in its very physiology. You do not need to analyze each detail. Simply let the image settle. A large black and white figure seated among tall green stems, chewing slowly, pausing, breathing, resting. Hours pass without drama. The forest remains calm. And as this rhythm continues, you may begin to wonder how changing climates across the ages, colder spells and warmer intervals, influence where these slow-moving specialists can thrive, and how the mountains themselves shape the quiet boundaries of their world. If you remain seated in the bamboo forest and allow time to stretch outward once more, you begin to sense that the forest itself is not permanent. The mist that curls around the mountain slopes today has not always moved in the same way. Across tens of thousands of years, temperatures rise and fall like slow tides. Glacial periods cool the planet. Interglacial warmth returns. And with each gentle swing of climate, forests expand, retreat, and rearrange themselves across the landscape. During colder intervals, ice sheets grow far to the north, and global temperatures drop. Even in East Asia, where glaciers do not blanket every mountain, the air becomes cooler and drier. Forests thin in some regions. Lower elevations may give way to grasslands or open woodlands. In these times, bamboo habitats shift, moving toward valleys and sheltered slopes where moisture persists. The panda lineage, already closely tied to bamboo, follows these green corridors as best it can. You can imagine the mountains as layered steps, each at a different elevation. As climate cools, suitable bamboo zones descend slightly. Pandas adapt by adjusting their range, moving gradually to remain within reach of their primary food source. These movements are not dramatic migrations across continents. They are subtle shifts within mountain systems, guided by the availability of vegetation. When warmer periods return, rainfall patterns change again. Forests thicken. Bamboo spreads upward along slopes. The green belt widens. Pandas expand their range accordingly, occupying elevations that were once too cold or sparse. Over millennia, this gentle dance between temperature and vegetation repeats many times. Each cycle shapes the distribution of panda populations. Isolation becomes an important theme during these climatic fluctuations. As forests fragment during cooler or drier phases, populations of pandas may become separated in different mountain refuges. One group occupies a valley in Sichuan. Another persists in the Qinling Mountains. Between them lie stretches of unsuitable habitat. With limited opportunity for interbreeding, genetic differences slowly accumulate. These isolated populations carry the imprint of their specific environments. Subtle variations in climate, bamboo species composition, and terrain influence natural selection. Over long periods, these differences may become visible in genetic studies. Modern analyses reveal distinct genetic lineages among regional panda populations, reflecting ancient separations shaped by climate and geography. The rhythm of ice ages and warming periods does not erase the panda lineage, but it refines it. Individuals capable of tolerating cooler temperatures or adjusting to shifts in bamboo availability are more likely to persist through climatic stress. Thick fur provides insulation during colder phases, and behavioral flexibility, such as moving between elevations, offers additional resilience. You might picture the forest as breathing slowly. Inhale, temperatures rise, forests spread. Exhale, climates cool, habitats contract. The panda breathes with it, neither resisting nor dominating, simply adjusting within its ecological niche. Fossil and pollen records from sediment cores help scientists reconstruct these past environments. Layers of pollen grains preserved in ancient lake beds reveal which plants dominated at different times. When bamboo pollen increases in the record, it signals periods of favorable conditions for its growth. These botanical traces provide quiet evidence of shifting habitats long before written history. Throughout these climatic cycles, the panda's reliance on bamboo remains central. While other large mammals may adapt to broader ranges of habitats, the panda's specialization ties it closely to forested mountains. This specialization is both strength and vulnerability. In stable times, it offers dependable nourishment. In times of rapid change, it requires careful adjustment. Yet the pace of ancient climate shifts, though significant, is generally slow compared to sudden disturbances. Glacial cycles unfold over tens of thousands of years, allowing species time to respond gradually. The panda lineage persists through these oscillations, evidence of its adaptability within certain bounds. If you let your mind rest on this image of shifting forests, you may feel a sense of continuity beneath change. The mountains remain. Rivers continue carving valleys. Bamboo returns wherever conditions allow. The panda's path weaves through these transformations, anchored to green refuges. Genetic diversity within panda populations reflects this long history of expansion and contraction. Periods of habitat fragmentation reduce population size, leading to genetic bottlenecks. Later expansions increase numbers again. These cycles leave signatures in DNA, traces of ancient hardships and recoveries. There is something deeply calming in recognizing that the panda has already endured profound environmental change. Ice ages have come and gone. Forests have retreated and returned. Through it all, the lineage survives by staying aligned with its ecological needs. As you breathe gently, imagine cold winds sweeping across high ridges during glacial times. Then warmer rains nourishing bamboo shoots in interglacial warmth. The panda adapts not through haste, but through steady movement and resilience. Elevation becomes a quiet refuge. Mountain slopes offer microclimates, cooler pockets, sheltered valleys, moist ravines. Within these varied terrains, bamboo can persist even when surrounding lowlands become less suitable. The panda's preference for mountainous regions is therefore not accidental. It is an evolutionary partnership with topography itself. Over time, these climatic oscillations help shape the modern distribution of pandas. Today's fragmented habitats echo ancient patterns of isolation. The genetic differences between regional populations are living reminders of past climate tides. You do not need to hold the details of every glacial advance or retreat. Simply notice how life flows with change. And the panda lineage does not stand rigid against shifting temperatures. It moves gently, tracking bamboo's green thread across mountain landscapes. And as these cycles of cooling and warming continue to sculpt both land and lineage, you may begin to wonder how isolation in high mountain valleys further refines the panda's genetic identity, shaping distinct branches within its own quiet family tree. If you imagine standing high on a mountain slope in central China, early morning mist drifting between dark green ridges, you begin to understand how separation happens without noise. Valleys fold inward, ridgelines rise like quiet walls, and forests cling to steep terrain. From a distance, the landscape appears continuous. Yet for animals moving on the ground, each mountain range can become its own world. As climate cycles shift forests up and down these slopes, panda populations settle into pockets of suitable habitat. One group lives in a misty valley where bamboo grows thick along cool streams. Another occupies a ridge system separated by kilometers of terrain that offers little nourishment. To human eyes, the distance may seem small. To a solitary forest animal, it can be vast. Over time, such separations matter. When individuals from one mountain range rarely meet those from another, genes circulate mostly within local groups. Variation still occurs, as it always does. Mutations arise quietly in each generation. But without regular exchange between populations, these variations follow slightly different paths. The process is subtle, like dialects forming in neighboring villages that seldom speak to one another. You can picture two valleys at dawn. In one, bamboo shoots emerge a little earlier in spring. In the other, winter lingers slightly longer, shaping feeding patterns and reproductive timing. These small environmental differences influence which traits offer advantage. Perhaps thicker fur is favored in colder pockets. Perhaps subtle behavioral shifts align with local bamboo species. Over many generations, these slight preferences accumulate. Genetic studies of modern pandas reveal distinct lineages associated with different mountain regions. Although all belong to the same species, there are measurable differences in their DNA, reflecting long histories of partial isolation. These differences are not dramatic enough to create separate species, but they demonstrate how geography gently sculpts variation. The isolation also influences population size. Some mountain habitats support only a limited number of individuals. When populations become small, genetic drift, the random fluctuation of gene frequencies, plays a larger role. Certain traits may become common, not because they are especially advantageous, but simply because chance favors them within a small group. Over time, these random shifts contribute to subtle regional uniqueness. There is a quiet beauty in this process. Evolution is not always driven by strong selection pressures. Sometimes it unfolds through chance and separation, through the simple fact that not every valley connects easily to the next. Mountains become natural laboratories, shaping life in contained spaces. As you breathe slowly, imagine mist settling into a narrow gorge. The world feels enclosed, peaceful. Within this valley, a handful of pandas forage among bamboo stands. Cubs grow up learning the rhythms of this specific terrain. They inherit not only genes, but behaviors adapted to local conditions. Over decades and centuries, these patterns stabilize. When warmer climatic periods reconnect forest corridors, occasional gene flow may occur between regions. A wandering individual crosses a ridge, introducing new genetic material into a neighboring population. This exchange refreshes diversity, preventing complete divergence. In this way, isolation is rarely absolute. It is a balance between separation and occasional connection. The mountains of Sichuan, Shanxi, and Gansu each host panda populations with distinct genetic signatures. Modern conservation biology recognizes these differences, understanding that preserving genetic diversity across regions is vital for long-term resilience. The echoes of ancient isolation continue to shape present-day management strategies. You might reflect on how similar this is to human languages evolving in remote villages. Accents shift gradually. Vocabulary adapts to local life. Yet beneath these differences lies a shared foundation. Pandas in different mountains share common ancestry, common anatomy, common dependence on bamboo. Their variations are refinements, not departures. Isolation can also amplify vulnerability. When habitats fragment further due to natural or human causes, small populations face increased risk from disease or environmental change. Genetic diversity, once broadened by occasional connection, may narrow. Yet even here, as the long history of adaptation within mountain refuges offers lessons in resilience. Within each isolated valley, natural selection continues its quiet work. If a particular bamboo species dominates one region, feeding efficiency may subtly improve for individuals best suited to that plant's structure. Over generations, dental wear patterns, jaw strength, and even digestive microbial communities may shift slightly to match local conditions. You do not need to track each genetic marker or population boundary. Simply picture the mountains layered in soft grey light, each valley holding its own quiet chapter of the panda's story. Separation is not dramatic. It is gentle, shaped by ridges and rivers. As evening falls in your imagined landscape, pandas settle among thick bamboo. The air cools. Sounds soften. In one valley, the forest hums with familiar insects. In another, the tone differs just slightly. The animals themselves may look nearly identical to human observers, yet their genes carry subtle distinctions born of long isolation. These refinements do not change the essence of the panda. They deepen it. They remind us that evolution operates on multiple scales at once, shaping species broadly while also tuning local populations with delicate precision. If your thoughts drift, let them rest on the image of mist weaving between mountain peaks. There is nothing you need to resolve. Just notice how separation and connection alternate across time, how geography sculpts diversity without haste. And as you consider these quiet valleys forming their own subtle accents, you may begin to wonder what stories are written not only in bones and landscapes, but in the very sequences of DNA that record this long history of divergence and reunion. If you step gently from the misty mountains into a quiet laboratory, the story of the panda continues in a different kind of landscape. There are no bamboo forests here, no drifting clouds along ridgelines. Instead, there are microscopes, softly humming machines, and strands of DNA carefully extracted from cells. Yet the feeling is not so different. There is still patience. There is still quiet revelation. Because within every panda, written in a code too small to see with the naked eye, lies a calm archive of its evolutionary journey. DNA is often described as a blueprint, but it is also a record. Each molecule carries sequences of nucleotides arranged in patterns passed down from ancestors. Over time, small changes accumulate in these sequences. Mutations appear, most of them subtle and harmless. Some fade away, others persist. Like faint pencil marks added to a long manuscript, they document the passage of generations. When scientists sequence the panda's genome, they are not searching for drama. They are reading a long text written slowly across millions of years. By comparing panda DNA with that of other bears, researchers confirm what fossils have suggested. The panda lineage branches early from the common bear ancestor. Genetic differences between pandas and other bear species are consistent with a long period of independent evolution. You can imagine DNA as a thread woven through time. In certain regions of the genome, the sequence remains highly conserved, shared broadly among carnivorans. These segments remind us of the panda's heritage as a member of that ancient order. In other regions, changes reflect adaptation to a bamboo-based lifestyle. Genes associated with digestion, taste perception, and immune response reveal subtle shifts that align with ecological specialization. One particularly fascinating aspect of panda genetics involves taste receptors. Research indicates that the gene responsible for detecting umami flavor, commonly associated with meat, has become non-functional in pandas. This does not erase their carnivoran ancestry, but it may reduce their sensory attraction to meat. The loss of this receptor aligns gently with their dietary emphasis on bamboo. At the same time, genes involved in detoxifying plant compounds remain active. Bamboo contains chemical defenses that deter many herbivores. The panda's genome includes mechanisms for processing some of these compounds, supporting its ability to consume large quantities safely. These genetic adjustments are not dramatic leaps. They are refinements layered gradually upon inherited structure. As you breathe softly, you may picture the genome as a quiet library. Each gene is a volume on a shelf, some ancient and unchanged, others bearing marginal notes added over time. Sequencing technologies allow scientists to scan this library, comparing chapters between species. Through these comparisons, timelines of divergence become clearer. Molecular clock techniques estimate how long ago lineages separated by measuring the accumulation of genetic differences. In pandas, these analyses support an early divergence from other bears, reinforcing fossil evidence. The agreement between bones and genes feels almost harmonious. The two independent records converging calmly on the same conclusion. Genetic diversity within panda populations also tells a story. By sampling DNA from individuals across different mountain ranges, researchers observe patterns shaped by past isolation and expansion. Certain genetic markers are more common in one region than another, reflecting ancient separations during climatic shifts. Yet shared sequences across populations remind us of common ancestry and occasional gene flow. The panda genome also reveals insights into metabolism. Variations in genes associated with energy regulation correspond with the species' low metabolic rate. These genetic patterns support the slow-burning internal fire you have already imagined. They underscore how physiology and DNA align in quiet coordination. Even the enlargement of the radial sesamoid bone, that curious pseudo-thumb, has genetic underpinnings. Developmental genes guiding limb formation subtly influence bone growth patterns. Over generations, small variations in regulatory sequences can alter how much a particular bone elongates. Evolution shapes structure not by inventing new genes entirely, but by adjusting when and how existing genes are expressed. There is something deeply peaceful in understanding that the panda's story is written not only in landscapes and fossils, but within microscopic sequences carried in every cell. The code does not hurry. It accumulates change gradually, recording adaptation without judgment. You do not need to memorize specific genes or nucleotide sequences. Simply imagine a long strand spiraling gently, carrying instructions refined across deep time. Within that spiral lies the memory of ancient forests, shifting climates, and countless meals of bamboo. Genomic research also assists modern conservation. By analyzing levels of genetic diversity, scientists assess the health of panda populations. Higher diversity generally supports resilience, allowing populations to adapt to future environmental changes. Regions with lower diversity may require careful management to prevent inbreeding and loss of variation. Thus, DNA serves not only as a record of the past, but as a guide for the future. It informs strategies aimed at maintaining connectivity between fragmented habitats, ensuring that gene flow continues where possible. The quiet code becomes a tool for preserving the lineage it documents. As evening settles in your imagined laboratory, the machines continue their soft work, translating sequences into digital patterns. Outside, in real mountain forests, pandas move slowly among bamboo. The connection between these two worlds, wild landscape and molecular data, is subtle yet profound. The genome does not speak loudly. It whispers through patterns of similarity and difference. It confirms the early branching of the panda lineage. It reveals adaptations to plant digestion and low metabolism. It reflects past isolation and occasional reconnection. If your thoughts drift now, let them settle on the image of DNA as a calm river flowing through generations. There is nothing urgent in its movement, just steady transmission from parent to offspring, from ancient ancestor to modern panda. And as you consider this quiet archive within each cell, you may begin to wonder how shifts in population size across history, expansions and bottlenecks, leave their own faint signatures in this delicate code, shaping the genetic landscape of pandas today. If you imagine a still mountain lake at dawn, its surface smooth as glass, you can picture how even the smallest pebble creates ripples that spread outward in widening circles. Population change works in much the same way. When the number of individuals in a species rises or falls, the effects move quietly through generations, shaping genetic diversity in subtle patterns. There is no sudden crash of sound in this process, only steady arithmetic unfolding across time. In stable periods, when bamboo forests stretch widely across mountain ranges and climate remains favorable, panda populations can expand. More cubs survive to adulthood. Territories overlap gently without severe competition. Genetic variation flows through the population like currents beneath calm water. Diversity increases because more individuals contribute their unique combinations of genes to the next generation. But conditions do not always remain so steady. During colder climatic phases, or when forests fragment, population sizes may shrink. Some valleys lose their bamboo stands. Others become isolated from neighboring habitats. When fewer individuals remain, the genetic pool narrows. This is known as a population bottleneck, though the term sounds more abrupt than the experience itself. In reality, it unfolds over years and decades, a gradual thinning rather than a sudden disappearance. When a bottleneck occurs, chance plays a larger role in determining which genetic variations persist. Imagine drawing marbles from a jar. If the jar is full, the range of colors remains broad. If only a handful remain, the selection becomes more limited. The same principle applies to genes. In small populations, random events can disproportionately influence which traits are passed forward. This process is called genetic drift. It is not guided by advantage or disadvantage, but by probability. Over time, certain genetic variants may become common simply because their carriers happen to survive and reproduce. Others may fade away, not because they are harmful, but because chance did not favor them. The ripples of drift move quietly through the population's genetic landscape. For pandas, evidence of past bottlenecks appears in their DNA. Genetic studies reveal periods when diversity declined, likely corresponding to climatic shifts or habitat fragmentation. Yet these declines are not permanent endings. When conditions improve and populations expand again, diversity can increase once more. Recovery spreads like fresh ripples across the surface. You might find comfort in recognizing that resilience often follows contraction. A smaller population does not mean extinction is inevitable. It means the genetic pattern tightens for a time, then loosens as numbers grow. The rhythm of contraction and expansion has repeated throughout the panda's long history. The mathematics of population change does not require complicated equations to understand at a gentle level. It is about scale. In large populations, variation is buffered. In small populations, variation is more fragile. Pandas living in isolated mountain regions have experienced both states across millennia. Modern conservation efforts are informed by this understanding. By maintaining habitat corridors between fragmented forests, conservationists encourage gene flow between populations. When individuals can move between valleys and reproduce, genetic diversity spreads more evenly. This reduces the risk of inbreeding and strengthens resilience against disease or environmental change. Inbreeding, which can occur in very small isolated groups, reduces genetic diversity further. Closely related individuals are more likely to share similar genetic variants, including those that may cause health problems. Over time, this can affect reproductive success and survival. Yet even here, the process is gradual, not dramatic. It is another ripple in the quiet mathematics of life. As you imagine these patterns, picture circles expanding across a lake's surface. Some intersect and blend, symbolizing gene flow between regions. Others remain separate for a time, reflecting isolation. The water itself remains calm. There is no urgency in its motion. Researchers use tools such as genome sequencing and statistical modeling to estimate historical population sizes. By analyzing the distribution of genetic variation, they can infer whether populations were once larger or smaller than they are today. For pandas, these analyses suggest fluctuations linked to climatic cycles and human impacts in more recent centuries. Human expansion, deforestation, and land development have contributed to further fragmentation of panda habitats in historical times. And these changes compress populations into smaller areas, intensifying the effects of drift and bottlenecks. Yet, concerted conservation actions in recent decades have stabilized and even slightly increased panda numbers in certain regions. There is a quiet optimism embedded in these numbers. While mathematics may seem abstract, here it reflects living beings adapting to change. Each cub born carries a unique combination of genes, a new ripple in the genetic lake. Each successful connection between habitats strengthens the pattern. If your thoughts begin to drift, allow them to settle on the image of calm water once more. There is nothing you need to calculate. Just notice how expansion and contraction alternate across time, how variation narrows and widens without haste. The panda's story is not a straight line of growth or decline. It is a wave, rising and falling gently across millennia. Population bottlenecks leave traces in DNA, but they do not erase the lineage. Instead, they add depth to its history. And as these quiet numbers continue to shape the genetic landscape of pandas, you may begin to wonder how the presence of humans, not only as distant observers, but as active participants in the environment, influences the future trajectory of this ancient branch of the bear family tree. If you remain in the mountains and allow time to move forward into more recent centuries, another presence begins to shape the landscape. Terraces appear along lower slopes. Small villages nestle in valleys. Paths wind between settlements. Humans, too, are part of this evolving story. Their influence spreads gradually at first, then more noticeably, the altering forests that have long sheltered the panda lineage. For thousands of years, human communities in these regions live in relative balance with surrounding ecosystems. Forests are used for timber and fuel, bamboo harvested for tools and construction. Yet as populations grow and agricultural practices expand, more land is cleared. Forest cover recedes from certain valleys, replaced by fields and roads. The once continuous green corridors begin to fragment. For pandas, whose lives are tied closely to bamboo forests, fragmentation presents a challenge. When habitats become divided by farmland or infrastructure, movement between mountain ranges becomes more difficult. Populations that once connected through forested corridors may find themselves separated by human settlements. The gentle pattern of isolation you explored earlier now intensifies. You can imagine a panda standing at the edge of a forest, beyond which lies an open field unfamiliar and exposed. Unlike in ancient climatic shifts, where changes unfolded slowly across millennia, human-driven alterations can occur within decades. The pace is different, yet the panda's biological rhythms remain slow and steady. Despite these changes, adaptation and resilience continue. Some pandas adjust their range, retreating deeper into mountainous areas where human presence is less dense. Steeper slopes and higher elevations become refuges once again. These regions, less suitable for agriculture, preserve fragments of ancient habitat. As awareness of panda vulnerability grows during the 20th century, conservation efforts begin to take shape. And scientists conduct surveys, mapping panda distribution and estimating population size. Nature reserves are established in key habitats, creating protected zones where logging and development are restricted. These reserves function like safe harbors within the larger landscape. You may sense a quiet shift in this story. Humans, once primarily a source of habitat alteration, begin to act as caretakers. Conservation biology emerges as a discipline grounded in data and observation. Researchers study panda behavior, reproductive biology, and habitat needs. Their goal is not to reshape the species, but to preserve the ecological conditions that support it. One of the most important strategies involves maintaining and restoring habitat corridors. By linking isolated forest patches, conservationists encourage gene flow between panda populations. These corridors reduce the risks associated with small, fragmented groups. The mathematics of population change, which you considered earlier, guides these efforts. Captive breeding programs also develop as a supplementary measure. In carefully managed facilities, scientists study panda reproduction, neonatal care, and health. The aim is to support population numbers and, where possible, reintroduce individuals into protected wild habitats. These programs rely on detailed genetic analysis to avoid inbreeding and maintain diversity. There is something steady and hopeful in this work. It acknowledges the impact of human expansion without despair. It recognizes that coexistence is possible when informed by science and guided by long-term commitment. Reforestation projects further contribute to habitat recovery. Areas once cleared for agriculture are allowed to regenerate or actively replanted with native species. Bamboo growth returns where soil and moisture conditions permit. Over time, these restored forests reconnect fragmented landscapes, softening the boundaries that once isolated panda populations. You might picture a hillside that was once bare gradually turning green again. Young bamboo shoots push upward, saplings take root. In a few decades, a corridor forms where none existed before. A wandering panda crosses this newly restored path, carrying genes from one valley to another. International cooperation also plays a role. Pandas become symbols of conservation worldwide, inspiring funding and research collaborations. Yet beneath this symbolic status lies practical work. Habitat mapping, disease monitoring, climate modeling. Each effort contributes quietly to the species' stability. It is important to note that challenges remain. Expanding infrastructure, tourism and climate change continue to influence mountain ecosystems. Rising temperatures may alter bamboo distribution over the coming century. Conservation plans increasingly incorporate climate projections, identifying potential future refuges where suitable habitat may persist. Still, the tone of this story is not alarmist. It is one of careful stewardship. Modern surveys suggest that wild panda populations have stabilized and even shown modest increases in certain regions. This improvement reflects decades of sustained conservation measures. As you breathe gently, imagine the coexistence unfolding in layers. In one valley, farmers cultivate crops at lower elevations while protected forests remain intact above. In another, ecotourism provides economic incentive to preserve natural landscapes. Human and panda paths intersect without complete overlap. The relationship between humans and pandas continues to evolve. It is not static. Policies shift, technologies improve, awareness deepens. Each generation has the opportunity to refine coexistence, just as evolution refines anatomy over time. There is nothing you need to solve in this moment. Simply notice how the story expands to include another species, one capable of altering landscapes, yet also capable of restoration and care. And as the forests continue to regenerate in protected areas and corridors quietly reconnect isolated mountains, you may begin to wonder how conservation itself becomes part of the panda's ongoing evolutionary journey, shaping not only its survival, but the future direction of its ancient branch. If you sit quietly in a restored bamboo forest today, listening to wind move through tall green stems, you may sense that evolution has not ended. It has simply shifted its context. The forces that once sculpted the panda through climate and geography now include human intention. Conservation, when guided carefully, becomes another layer in the long story of adaptation. Evolution is often imagined as something ancient, something that belongs to fossils and distant epochs. Yet it continues in every generation. Each cub born in a mountain reserve carries genes shaped by millions of years, and those genes will interact with the conditions of the present. Protected landscapes do not freeze evolution in place. They provide space for it to proceed without abrupt disruption. Nature reserves established across the panda's range serve as modern refuges, similar in function to the mountain valleys that sheltered populations during past climate shifts. Within these protected areas, bamboo forests are allowed to regenerate naturally. Logging restrictions reduce habitat loss. Human disturbance is managed carefully. These measures create stability, giving panda populations room to maintain healthy numbers. You might picture conservation as a gentle partnership. Humans step back in certain regions, allowing ecological processes to unfold. Bamboo grows in cycles, flowering and receding according to its own rhythms. Pandas move between feeding grounds, following the seasonal availability of shoots. The balance is delicate, yet it holds. Habitat corridors play a particularly important role in this partnership. By reconnecting fragmented forest patches, conservationists reduce genetic isolation. These corridors may follow ridgelines or river valleys, creating pathways through which pandas can disperse. When individuals travel and reproduce across regions, genetic diversity spreads more evenly. This strengthens resilience against disease and environmental change. There is a quiet elegance in this strategy. Rather than attempting to alter the panda itself, Conservation focuses on preserving the ecological relationships that sustain it. The species continues to adapt within its niche, but now with reduced pressure from habitat destruction. Bamboo restoration efforts further support this dynamic. In areas where forests were previously cleared, replanting programs encourage the return of native vegetation. Bamboo species suited to local climates are cultivated, ensuring that future generations of pandas will have reliable food sources. Over time, these restored landscapes begin to resemble the ancient forests that shaped the lineage. Conservation also relies on careful monitoring. Scientists track panda movements using radio collars and camera traps, gathering data on territory size, reproductive success, and habitat use. These observations inform management decisions, ensuring that interventions remain aligned with ecological realities. You may find comfort in recognizing that this work unfolds patiently. Forest regeneration takes decades. Bamboo stands mature slowly. Panda populations respond gradually. There are no instant transformations, just steady commitment across years and generations. In some cases, captive breeding programs complement wild conservation. Facilities designed to mimic natural habitats allow researchers to study reproductive biology and cub development. When appropriate, individuals are reintroduced into protected reserves. These efforts are guided by genetic analysis, ensuring that diversity is preserved rather than narrowed. Even climate change becomes part of this evolving landscape. As global temperatures rise, models predict shifts in suitable bamboo habitat. Conservation planning increasingly anticipates these changes, identifying potential future refuges at higher elevations. In this way, science seeks to align with nature's long-term patterns rather than react to them abruptly. If you let your breathing slow, you may sense how conservation resembles the slow rhythms you have explored throughout this journey. It is not a battle against nature, but a collaboration with it. By understanding the panda's evolutionary history, its dependence on bamboo, its low metabolic rate, its need for connected habitats, humans can create conditions that support continued adaptation. There is nothing hurried here. Forests regrow leaf by leaf. Corridors form as saplings mature. Pandas adjust their ranges gradually. Evolution continues quietly within these protected spaces. You do not need to imagine dramatic rescues or sudden recoveries. Instead, picture a valley once fragmented, now linked by a corridor of young bamboo. A panda crosses from one slope to another, carrying its genes into new territory. And that single movement represents continuity, a thread connecting past and future. As conservation science refines its methods, it becomes increasingly informed by genetic data, climate projections, and long-term ecological monitoring. Each dataset adds nuance to decision-making. Each successful habitat restoration becomes part of the species' ongoing narrative. The panda, shaped by millions of years of gradual change, now lives within landscapes partially guided by human care. Yet its fundamental rhythms remain the same: feeding, resting, reproducing, moving through bamboo forests in steady cycles. There is a quiet hope in this understanding. Evolution has always involved interaction between organisms and environment. Today, humans are part of that environment. When actions are thoughtful and grounded in science, they can support rather than disrupt the natural flow of adaptation. If your thoughts begin to drift, let them settle on the image of a young bamboo shoot emerging from moist soil in a protected reserve. That shoot represents both continuity and renewal. It feeds the panda. It anchors the ecosystem. It stands as a small testament to collaboration between species. And as you rest in this sense of ongoing partnership, you may begin to wonder how the panda's long journey, from ancient bear ancestors to modern conservation icon, reflects the deeper theme of patience itself, a theme that will gently guide us into our final reflections. If you return now to the quiet mountain forest where this journey began, you may notice how differently it feels. The bamboo still sways. Mist still drifts between ridgelines. A panda still sits among green stems, chewing with slow, deliberate rhythm. And yet, behind that simple image lies a story stretching across tens of millions of years. A story not of speed or spectacle, but of patience. The panda's lineage begins as part of a broader bear family, adaptable and versatile. From those ancient roots, a branch slowly angles towards something more specialized. Teeth broaden, jaws strengthen, a small wrist bone enlarges. Digestive patterns adjust without fully abandoning ancestral design. Climate shifts, mountains rise, valleys isolate and reconnect. Through each transition, the panda lineage persists, not by rushing forward, but by aligning gently with its environment. There is something deeply reassuring in this realization. Evolution is not a race toward perfection. It is a quiet unfolding, shaped by context. When bamboo becomes abundant in certain mountain forests, the panda leans toward it. When climate cools, it shifts elevation. When populations shrink, genetic diversity narrows for a time, then expands again as conditions improve. The rhythm continues. If you allow your breathing to slow, you may sense how this mirrors your own life. Change does not always arrive in dramatic bursts. Often it accumulates gradually, shaped by small adjustments repeated over time. The panda embodies this principle in every aspect of its biology. Its low metabolic rate reflects steady energy use. Its solitary habits reduce unnecessary competition. Its anatomy reveals the imprint of countless meals patiently consumed. The story of the panda also reminds you that adaptation does not require abandoning identity. Despite its plant-based diet, it remains unmistakably a bear. Its skeletal structure, its lineage, its genetic code all testify to ancient origins. Specialization does not erase history, it builds upon it. Modern conservation efforts add another layer to this narrative. Humans, once agents of fragmentation, now participate in habitat restoration and protection. Reserves preserve forest corridors. Bamboo regeneration reconnects mountain slopes. Genetic monitoring ensures diversity remains strong. These actions do not halt evolution. They create space for it to continue at its natural pace. When you think of deep time, it can feel vast and abstract. Yet here, in the image of a panda calmly chewing bamboo, deep time becomes tangible. Every ridge on its molars, every curve of its skull, every subtle gene variant carries the memory of ancient forests and shifting climates. The past is not distant. It is present in the living body before you. There is a quiet humility in recognizing how long this lineage has endured. Ice ages have come and gone. Mountains have risen and eroded. Forests have expanded and contracted. Through it all, the panda has adapted in measured increments. Not because it is extraordinary in a dramatic sense, but because it is steady. Perhaps that steadiness is its most remarkable trait. In a world that often celebrates speed and intensity, the panda thrives through calm repetition. It eats slowly, it rests often, It moves deliberately. Its survival strategy is built on patience. You do not need to hold every scientific detail from this journey. The broad pattern is enough. A lineage branches. It specializes gradually. It endures through change. It collaborates, unknowingly at first, and later more consciously, with the landscapes and species around it. As you sit with this understanding, imagine the forest at dusk. The air cools slightly. Bamboo leaves whisper softly. The panda finishes a meal and settles into a comfortable resting place. There is no urgency in its posture, no anxiety about tomorrow, just a quiet continuation of life shaped by millions of years. In that stillness, you may notice how wide and connected the story feels. The panda's evolution is not isolated from the world. It is woven into climate patterns, geological shifts, genetic mathematics, and human decisions. Every layer contributes to the whole. And yet, despite this complexity, the essence remains simple. Adaptation through patience, survival through alignment, continuity through gentle change. If your thoughts begin to drift now, allow them to settle like mist in a valley. There is nothing you need to analyze or conclude. The panda's story does not demand resolution. It invites reflection. You may find comfort in knowing that life does not have to transform suddenly to endure. It can adjust slowly, responding to its surroundings with subtlety and care. The panda, shaped by patience, stands as a quiet testament to that truth. As this journey gently comes to a close, notice how wide and still the world feels. So many lives unfolding quietly, whether we see them or not. You don't need to keep their names or stories. They've already done their work. If you enjoy these slow explorations, you can support the channel in any small way that feels natural, so others can find this calm too. But right now, there is nothing to decide and nowhere to go. Let your thoughts soften, your muscles relax, and the night carry you onward, one peaceful breath at a time.